And welcome back to the Nullified Take, where we are discussing the second part of the Survivor 47 finale. It is me, Coach Drew. Today, Jake, I think we think that Jake has the flu. We don't know. I'm fairly certain Jake has the flu. So today, we're joined by Sarah, who's coming back from the marathon over the summer. So it's been a few months. So I just want to get right into, before we talk about the actual episode, I want to get your actual thoughts on the season leading up to this episode, and what you were hoping was going to happen by the time the episode ended.
Mm-hmm. So I love the season. It's in the top seasons for me. I would say definitely number 1 for New Era, number 10 altogether. I think it was an amazing season. I definitely expected Rachel to win. Obviously, I think everyone watching did. So I was a little disappointed at how predictable it was. It was a boring finale, besides the fire making challenge, but everything else we all saw coming, So for it to be such a great season and to end on more of a boring note, like Rachel's win was great. Final Tribal was a great battle, but just the predictable part of it, I was like, ugh.
And I guess we can just go right into that, because we sat here last week and we started going over, okay, because we know they're splitting it up to 2 episodes, how are they going to pad the time yesterday? We hoped it wouldn't be the Australian Outback finale, where it just kind of dragged on. And I don't feel like it dragged on necessarily. I think that every segment that they had some type of point to it, but it did feel like just a Rachel coronation, until there's a point in the episode where I think, oh my God, Sam's going to win this, and I'm going to be so upset, but not like throwing things upset, just like, oh man, Rachel lost at Fire. So we start the episode, and they have their kumbaya, we made Final Four, we did this, we did that. And everyone's giving their speech of what it means for them to have gotten to this point. At the beginning of the episode, or at any point during the episode, did you ever feel like it could maybe not be Rachel?
For me, no.
Okay.
No. I was like, there's a possibility, like you said, she could lose in Fire, maybe like a 1 or 2% chance, but I mean, there was just no way. Like, the edit just was hyping her up so much, and I think it was her game to win. So,
and I will tell you, I haven't cheered that loudly and probably that obnoxiously for someone to win an immunity. I don't know, maybe since Natalie and Winners at War, that Final Four Winners at War. I needed Rachel to win that, because I knew no matter what the edit might be doing to my brain right now, I know that if Rachel makes it to the end, she'll have this in the bag. There's no way that she doesn't have this in the bag, right? So we go to the immunity challenge. So what? Because I know there's a lot of there's always discourse. There's a lot of discourse online of, man, I really wish that they did endurance challenges as the final immunity challenge again.
Yeah.
And I won't say that I hate that idea, because I actually do enjoy endurance challenges as a final immunity. But I do also enjoy basically this obstacle course that we can occasionally get, and or something similar to it. Do you have a preference on what a final immunity should be, or it's just you're just along for the ride?
I like that it was different this season, because we were getting the same type of Final Four immunity challenges. It was not much different. So I like that they changed it up, because I feel like this season they kind of changed up the Final 5 challenge, the Final 4 challenge, and kind of flip-flopped them. So I was okay with it, but I do love a good endurance battle. Like, watching them battle it out, it's like, how much do you want it type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those challenges are harder to earn immunity. So I think for that aspect of it, for the viewers, for the watching it, I'm like, I would rather have an endurance comp. So
yeah, and I do feel like, so, and we've talked about this a lot this season, about things that they potentially bring back, even if it's just for one season for 50. And I'm not convinced that would be the final 4 challenge, but like I wouldn't be shocked if they brought back something like a hand on a hard idol or something like that. No, I don't think it'll be necessarily that, because hand on a hard idol was fun in 2000. I don't think that it makes for the best of television for the larger audience in 2026 when the season comes out. I would love it, and I feel like the hardcore fans would love it as well. Even if they just brought it back for one episode, for one season.
They kind of overused the motion, so I was kind of glad they steered away from.
Took a break. They took a break.
They were overusing that one. So,
so Rachel wins immunity. I lose my mind. I chug my drink, and we get back to camp. And once again, it's everything in this episode is very straightforward as far as we're being told what's going to happen. And that's pretty much how a lot of the season has gone. There's been a lot of episodes this season where they're making it very obvious what's going to happen, whether it's going to be Rome that goes home, or it doesn't matter if Rachel wins this immunity because she's going to play her idol tonight, or something like that. They are telling us what's going to happen. And all season I felt like as long as they still make it at least seem compelling, I'll enjoy it. And I feel like they've done a really good job of that. In this episode, even, they're sitting in the water and she's straight up saying, "Oh yeah, Teenie and Sam, you're going to fire." Yeah. And Teenie and Sam have this moment. What did you think of the whole Teenie Sam mini back and forth in the water?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it was predictable. And I love that, like, Teenie had a chance to kind of tell Sam, like, at Final Four Tribal, how they felt and everything. I was like, that's good. But yeah, I felt like like I said, the only like unpredictable part of the episode, the exciting part was, of course, seeing how, before the fire making challenge, it looked like a clear Teenie was going to win. And then going into the challenge, like the fact that it was such a comeback, like that made it exciting to watch. But other than that, yeah, it was like you said, it was still enjoyable. It's still compelling, even though we knew it was coming. But yeah, that moment, the fire making was definitely exciting.
And yes, Gabe, you've run the entire season calling Teenie the Charlie Brown of the season, and Teenie did go out the Charlie Brown way, because we get to fire making. There's not really a whole like big deal made about it. It's kind of like, these are the people that are going. And I'll tell you, the bar that I was at, it was a very partisan. Teenie needs to win fire making to make Rachel's win easier. I think that's where most people's heads are at. So give Rachel an easier win. And Teenie somehow, even though their fire's burning the rope for what feels like the entire challenge, somehow doesn't win. And I love the memes online talking about how production was using a breeze to blow the fire away from the rope or whatever. And
like Genevieve's power, her mind bending powers.
And it's scared. It's scared because it's like, okay, well, if Sam wins, people are going to say, "Oh, they rigged it. They rigged the fire for Teenie." And it's like, okay, guys, wind happens. Wind happens. So Teenie loses. We get the Sam win, and Teenie had more of a tongue-in-cheek Liz moment from last season, where Liz says, "Oh, I would have beaten all of you." I think Teenie understood, and I think Teenie very much said it as a
joke.
As a joke, yes,
yeah, definitely a joke. Yeah.
So that's a wrap on Teenie. What were your thoughts on them as a player? I know, like I said, we've been calling them Charlie Brown for most of the season. Did you feel like there was any scenario where they could have potentially won at that final 5? Let's even say this final 5.
No possibility.
No?
But I think it's funny that Teenie's loss at fire was foreshadowed early in the merge when their bag. Remember the episode where their bag on fire? Yeah, I was like, okay, that is coming into play later.
I forgot about that.
Yes. And I think like that moment was like such an analogy for Teeny's game. The rest of the game was like nothing could go their way. Like, you know, they were left out of so many votes, blindsided, you know, just really struggled through the game. But like I really like that Teeny did keep a positive attitude, you know, like as much as went wrong for them, like they kept a positive attitude. And like I think that's why like I'm like, oh, like, you know, I felt a connection with them in the game. I don't think that, you know, they're a great strategic player, but I think they were a good social player. So
Well, and Jake compared Teeny to Jake from 45.
yeah.
And I think that's spot on. You know, Teeny tried a lot. The running gag was, let's get a non-male alliance. Let's do this. And every week, something would happen that would put that to bed. And then it became, okay, well, Genevieve's my person. And then we get the montage last week where it's like, oh, no, not only is Genevieve not your person, but she's basically just been playing you the entire game. I liked Teeny. I think that for some reason, Teeny has been getting a lot of online hate the last few weeks, which is weird. Like they haven't done anything wrong. Just so happens that they just ended up on the wrong side of a lot of the votes, and people have just chosen Teeny as the person that they're going to shit on this season. And that's, I won't say bothered. No, Teeny and Andy. They hate Andy too. What were your thoughts on Andy this season?
I love Andy. I love Andy. I hope Andy comes back for 50. Like he was one of my favorite characters to watch. Yeah, I think he's a fan favorite though. I think some people like maybe the Facebookers don't like him, but you know how it is every season.
Yeah, that's pretty much
But no, I think Twitter definitely likes Andy, and I think he has an amazing story, very much like Emily, obviously from 45, very similar story there. But I think Andy was, you know, the fact that he was able to pull off Operation Italy and the way he went about it with, you know, his acting and everything. I was like, this is so much fun to watch. Like that episode was one of my favorite episodes to watch ever.
Probably the episode of the, I can't, that's hard. There were a lot of episodes of the season, but Operation Italy is going to be as far as that everyone's going to remember that title. Everyone's always going to remember that title because of everything that happens in the episode. So Sam wins, and there are a lot of whispers in the bar. And I'm on Twitter and I'm following along, and there are a lot of people saying, "Oh my God, Sam's going to win," because everyone's overanalyzing it, and I'm one of them. I'm overanalyzing everything I'm seeing at this point because I'm like, okay, why are they showing so much Rachel in the last two episodes? Why is it being very knocked into our brains that Rachel's going to win? It must mean something, right? It just meant that she was going to win. So we get to Final Tribal, and once again, I'm like, wow, the episode I feel like the episode's flow went very well. So we get to Final Tribal, and I'm like, okay, this would be the last part that they could potentially drop something on us to pad out the episode. And they don't. It's this new hybrid thing that they're doing with the jury that they started in like 45, I think, maybe last season, where it's kind of an old school thing, but they still stay seated and it's still kind of fluid, but everyone's kind of gets a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this is the best of both worlds as far as jury questioning at this point in the show?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely liked how they used to do it. So, you know, the fact that they kind of lean more towards doing it that way now, I like that for sure. I like when they each have their own little special time and their own moment to address the jury members. But I wish they like edited it to where we didn't get as much content, you know, right before fire making. Like we don't need to see them practicing fire. Like I don't know, like that every season. You know, right after the final immunity challenge, them coming back to camp, you know, it's the same story. Like in 44, Jam helping, you know, Carson with fire. I'm like, I don't care about this, you know, like I wish we had less of that content and more of the final tribal council content, because I would have loved to see, you know, their questions for each person, because I felt like in the edit, you know, like Genevieve like only asked one question, like barely said anything. I'm like, I would have wanted to hear her more, you know. So yeah. I would say like
we know they're out there for hours asking questions. Yeah, like that. I agree with you. At this point, if you just have if they had that segment in the water where Rachel says, "Hey, you guys are going to fire," they have a montage of the two people going saying, "Oh, I need to win this because this, that, and the other," and then they just go straight to fire making. I think that's better than a whole drawn out thing of like, okay, this is the person I want to win, so I'm going to help them.
I hate that so much.
So we to the final tribal, and all season, me and Jake kept saying it looks like the jury's pretty pissed off, specifically Sierra. Kyle looked pissy a lot of the times. The only person that never came off as overly angry was Saul. Saul just looks like he was vibing the entire time, and based off of the Instagram Ponderosa thing that they do now, that's not really the Ponderosa videos, it does seem like Saul was just out there and having a good time.
Yes.
I'm happy that the questions were very straightforward and it didn't come off as just overly, we hate you.
Yeah, nobody was bitter. Yeah.
And this is where Sarah's whole thing comes, because all season we've been talking about how Sue's going to try to drop this bombshell on people. This is when because we clocked that Sue was probably going to sit at the end around like mid-merge.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so when Sue sits at the end, she's going to drop this bombshell on people and no one's going to care. And if Sarah wants to put out her Twitter on here, fine. But she had the perfect tweet last night that, and if you want to go into it and talk about, and also you can talk about your thoughts on Sue, the player, and what you thought was going to happen with her sitting at the end.
Yeah, I was so excited for that moment when she revealed her age, because we all knew the reaction would not be like, total shock or anything. Like I was so excited to see everyone's facial expressions and try to play it off that they were surprised when they went. But yeah, my tweet was just basically like, no one at all. And then she was saying, I'm 59, and then the jury just pretends to be shocked. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, Shay Wooden-C.
She's the oldest 47-year-old looking person, and she's the oldest 59-year-old.
I know.
But
I think like maybe, she was leaning in on her athleticism, because she was very fit for her age. Like when she brought up the point about like beating everybody in that challenge, I think like that aspect for her age was very impressive. So yeah, maybe not her looks, but the fact that she was physically fit to compete in those challenges at 59, like that goes a long way,
So I want to touch on this because I have something that I want to go off of with it. So the way they broke up the finale made it more boring, and Rachel being the predictable winner didn't help the end. She was deserving, but they could have edited in more flaws in her game and personal content. I would say that I probably disagree with the last part of that. They could have edited in more flaws in her game and personal content, because a season that most people don't like, that is not the best, but like I enjoyed for what it is, Survivor One World, where people put Kim Spradlin on this pedestal of being one of the greatest winners ever, and she is. Her entire, like that entire game, it's not like, I don't think and it's been a couple months since I rewatched One World, but like there are not many moments where we're looking at Kim as like having flaws or negative personal content. It's just a very positive edit from beginning to end, just on a universally looked at bad season. And in Rachel's case, she has nothing but positive content from basically beginning to end on an almost universally loved season. Do you feel like it would have made the finale more compelling if she had had more of an Adam Klein edit, where it's like, okay, she's screwed up here, she's screwed up here, maybe she doesn't win? Or do you feel like this is the right way for them to go?
Yeah, I think it was the right way for them to go. I don't think we needed to see more flaws in her game because I mean we got to see her low moments. We got to see her underdog story about how she, came off as someone on the bottom, obviously, emerged as a threat, and then tried to, shield her threat level a little more. But yeah, I mean, like I think she already had a great story. I didn't think she needed to have flaws in her game or anything. Maybe personal content, they could have added more of a story to her because some people were saying before the finale, they're like, I don't know if Rachel will win just because we haven't seen enough personal content from her. Like we saw a lot of personal content from Teenie, like, with everything she struggles with in her personal life. But, we didn't really see too much from Rachel about her personal life and her story. And that's fine too, because we just got to appreciate her as a player and, got to see her great game. So it's not like it was necessary, but it could have been nice.
And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, the only thing that I know about Rachel in like life is that she has a husband.
Yeah, the husband notes, like that was all we really got.
that's really all I know. So I guess I do agree with that.
But I like that they steered away from as like more personal content, not as much personal content this season as they have in the past. Like they used to focus so much on people's careers, the whole lawyer thing. Obviously, in early New Era seasons, we got the backstories, and I hated those. But yeah, I think that, I mean, really, if you think about each person, like we don't know too much about their personal lives, but some people
Teenie and Sue are probably Teenie, Sue, and Kyle. I feel like the three that we learned the most about this season.
Yeah. And I liked how they did it like that this season. I like the edit where it doesn't focus as heavy on personal content. It was more about game and strategy, and I like that.
Gabe's talking about the flaws, the Annika blindside and and Operation Italy. I don't even count those as flaws in Rachel's game. She just got bested in a round, which happens. I feel like a flaw would be something like how Adam Klein's did a lot of the early merge of Millennials Gen X, or Sarah and 34 giving the look to Sierra on her way out and getting clocked by, I think she got clocked by Andrea in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Rachel's flaws were necessarily shown. I think the biggest flaw that was shown by Rachel was after the final 6 vote when Rachel and Genevieve get back to camp and they're basically gloating, talking about how one of them were going to win in front of the other 3. That's the only real negative that I think that was shown to us.
Yeah, I agree. Which I love that moment. I mean, I love seeing Rachel and Genevieve, mother it out like that. I was talking to you about this earlier, but I was like, would there be a world where Genevieve and Rachel could get to the end? Because that would be an epic final tribal council that we all would have probably put at the very top of any final tribal council.
Absolutely.
To see the 2 of them battle it out. And I was like, the only way that they would have gotten there is if, Rachel got to save her idol for 5, Genevieve won immunity at 5, and then, one of them wins final immunity, one of them wins fire. But yes.
I agree, but I'll push back a little and say that she was kept out of the loop during the pre-merge, but they kept editing her to say, I think everything's going great during the Annika boot episode. And push back like that's fine. I will say that me personally, I don't care about anything that happens pre-merge once the merge hits, unless like it's a continuing storyline that ultimately has a payoff in the at some point in the merge. So like I do like any. Yeah, she was left out of things, and like she brings up during Final Tribal, the Sierra vote. No idea. And I think that's when things. And so the only thing that frustrated me about, because we actually haven't talked about actual specifics of Final Tribal.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that really stood out to me as far as like, oh, she didn't bring that up, at least on screen. Someone asks her like her biggest move or something like that.
Not in the dark.
And I'm like, and she mentions the final 6 thing, and I'm like, no, bring up the fact that you played a shot in the dark when you had an idol by just reading the room and realizing you didn't have to play the idol.
So in her exit interview, she said she never mentioned it. It wasn't even just because we didn't see it in the edit. It was never mentioned. She didn't think that it was important enough to bring up. And that's crazy because she's like, now looking back on it, I realized it was important to bring up and like how creative that was because no one had ever used a shot in the dark like that before. But she was like, in the moment at Final Tribal, I just did not think about it. And I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so I haven't watched her exit interview yet, but okay. So yeah, so okay, she never brings it up. And I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
I started shaking my head in the bar. I'm like, oh no. Just say the shot in the dark thing. That's it. That's how. If we want to look at when Rachel potentially like locked in, when she did that and all of a sudden threat level goes down here to the point where the non-threats invite her into their alliance, which is insane because she should have been with Genevieve, Kyle, and Sam. Oh, her and Sam could have swapped spots. She should have been over here. But after that happened, she immediately became this non-threat and was able to, I won't say coast, because Genevieve, the actual threat, still saw her as what she was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to listen to this because I'm shocked that
which I think it does show that Sam did have a Final Tribal Council or a better Final Tribal Council performance than Rachel. Like he was spot on. He had a great performance. He thought about everything, it seems like, but I think Rachel did kind of feel confident going into Final Tribal. And so I don't think she felt like it was necessary maybe to bring that up with the shot in the dark because her game did take off really after that round. So, I feel like she just didn't talk about a lot of things that happened earlier in the game, even though, that was right at merge, but still like she just focused on, I think from like final 8 on. But
yeah, it almost reminded me, outcome being different, but it also reminded me of Millennials vs. Gen X, where I feel like Hannah had a very good Final Tribal, and I feel like Hannah did do a lot in that game. And Adam's strategy was to talk, like at Final Tribal, was to talk, and also basically just to kneecap Hannah with everything that she says. Like, make sure that I discredit everything that she says. And I feel like that's what Sam and Rachel were doing, where Sam was saying all the stuff about Rachel, and Rachel's rebuttals, I think, is what like really kept her. Like, I think she was probably going to win no matter what. But I think that if a lesser player, someone that is kind of, if she had gone in there, it was like Bob Crowley, who kind of said, "Oh yeah, I didn't do this and I didn't do that." The vote could have been closer. I still think that she wins. Yeah. But I think because of her rebuttals and the fact that they were just kind of going after each other, game-wise, I do feel like even though Sam, I also think that Sam had a better Final Tribal. I think because she was able to fight back, that probably swayed people that may have been on the fence, except for Kyle, apparently, which when I saw the Kyle vote, that another thing went off my head. I'm like, oh no, Rachel's going to lose because Kyle's voting for Sam.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew he was going to vote.
You knew he was going to vote for Sam.
Yeah. I felt like he was that type of guy.
So did you? Okay, so like looking at the jurors, did you feel like a lot of them had their minds made up? No, despite what they say during the reunion.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of them had their minds made up, or do you think that some people were swayed?
No, I think they had their minds made up. I think they knew Rachel, because for the longest time during the game, like Rachel was the front runner. Like everybody kept hyping up her game, and that's what she said at the end. She's like, "You guys kept hyping up my game, like, and I'm here at the end. Like, you couldn't get me out, Like, I think there wasn't even any swaying that needed to be happening because the jury had already thought that about her in the game. Their perception of her was the same in the game as it was listening to her on the jury. Like, she was that big threat. She was the front runner that they all tried to get out and they could not get her out, So they were like, well, like, we don't really need to be swayed. Like, we know she is the top person here.
And that leads me to a question that. So a few weeks ago, Jake played devil's advocate and said he's a big Rachel person, but he played devil's advocate and he said, what has Rachel actually done that would make everyone out there put her on this pedestal?"
Mm-hmm.
The problem is there are actual people on the internet that were also starting to really buy into that same type of logic, but seriously from like 6 on. And my defense has been all season, this is the perfect example of perception reality.
Reality, yep.
Because we're told by everyone in their confessionals all season that Rachel's a threat. We're not seeing threatening things a little later in the game, but we're basically told for a long part of the game, Rachel's a threat. And then people started saying it out loud to not only her, but to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. But what's so mind-boggling to me is that a lot of people in the game, that was their strategy. Like Caroline's strategy was to hype up someone else's threat level so that the threat would be off of her. And a lot of the players had that same strategy to hype up other people's threat levels. So it's like they're all hyping up someone's threat level to keep the threat off of them. That's great strategy. But then what happens when the person you're hyping up gets to the end? Like now it's like, okay, you said they were a threat this whole game and they're sitting at the end. Like, where's the balance there between hyping up someone's threat level, but not hyping it up too much because then, they're going to be a clear winner, if they get to the end. So it's just like, yeah, that is a good question. Like, how much of it was her actually being a threat? Obviously, immunity challenges, that was a clear reason she was a threat, but how much of it was she's a threat because she is strategically controlling this game? And how much it was just other people trying to keep the threat level off of them. And she was just an easy person to say, oh, yeah, Rachel's a threat. And everybody just kind of hopped on board and hyped her up. So it's like, yeah, how much of it was she actually a threat? How much was it just other people saying that?
Exactly. It's a weird, I don't know what the word would be, but it's a weird type of situation where they basically crowned her from the jump. And I compare it to Erica from 41, where like if you read the edit, her OG tribe is trying to throw their challenge so they can get rid of her early because she seems like a threatening player. But we never actually see Erica do anything overly threatening besides breaking the hourglass. Like it was kind of the same, but not really with Rachel, where it's like we are being told all of this, but until we got to a specific point in the season, it's like, okay, yeah, Rachel's playing a very fine social game and everyone loves her. And then she sits at the end once the real threats, once Genevieve and Andy realize, oh yeah, we might want to actually deal with this now because everyone is buying into this. Mm-hmm. We should do something about it. And it's funny because for some reason, I didn't think that the whole immunity challenge thing would play such a big part in Final Tribal until we get there. And I think it was Andy that brought up the whole Mike Holloway Ben thing and how, hey, Rachel, I know that you're not high on these people, but you did kind of win a bunch of immunities or whatever. For you personally, where do you put challenge wins, challenge performances when you're looking at people that you want to win, people that you perceive as who you think deserves to win or what have you?
Mm-hmm. I think immunity challenges are only important if you need to win them. And I think in Rachel's case, she needed to win them. Her back was up against the wall. And I think that's why they are important. Like if she was just winning them to win them, no, it's not impressive, but she needed to win them. Also, she won the challenge that Kyle did not. And that's when Kyle went home. And I know she was, a big advocate for Kyle going home that round. And so like every immunity win was for a purpose. She kept someone else from winning immunity who needed to go home. She won immunity because she needed it, because if not, she would have been voted out. Like her immunity wins literally were all needed. So that's why they're impressive, not just because she won a challenge.
I think those people want a more strategic game. Rachel was underdog like Mike Holloway and Jenna, but the cards she was dealt and made it made it work. Can't be upset about that. Yes, I agree. Mike Holloway isn't one of my favorite winners, whatever that means, but like he had to do exactly what Rachel, like he had to win all of those immunities at the end of Worlds Apart because the crazy people were still trying to come after him.
Yeah.
Ben, as much as I'm not a Ben person, Ben had to idle his way through the rest of that game because he was going. You work to your strengths, and yes, for me personally, it goes social, strategic, physical. But if you're the physical person and that is your way out, like your way out, as in that's how you stay in the game, I'm not going to sit there and just be like, oh well, you challenged me your way through the end, but like you should have gone home weeks ago. It's like, who gives a shit? He didn't or she didn't. They did what they had to do better than the better social player or the better strategic player. They did their part of the game better than these other people did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my defense of it.
And, obviously Sam was like shitting on Rachel for, getting the idol clue and the French fries, like just being lucky, which I can kind of see that. But at the same time, like, no, she utilized what was given to her. She obviously took the time and worked to find the idol, but, she didn't just do what Sue did, played it and not negate any votes. Like she utilized her idol to make a big move. So the whole game, she utilized her immunity wins, her advantages, her idol to, impact the game. Everything impacted the game. So yeah, I respect it.
I think hold on. You win. Yes. I mean, if we had a name for this show, it would be that because me and Jake and basically everyone that we have come on kind of agrees with that. But I think the best way to navigate the threat thing is to make it known people are threats to make it to the end, or they are bad for your path to the end, but never say they are a threat to win. Easy. Thoughts?
I don't really understand that.
Okay. I was trying to deflect.
Yeah, I know. No thoughts.
I don't hate underdog style game. I don't either. I feel like the underdog style game, if you look at the show historically, the underdog style game wins more often than not as compared to the overly strategic big moves person. Like if we sat there and did all however many 45 winners, I would say that the majority of them have been underdogs, including one of the 2-time winners. I would say that a lot of the earlier season winners, and a few in the 30s, it's crazy to me that people still think, and I actually do want to get your opinion on this. It's crazy to me that people still think that it's all about big moves.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion on the big moves? I call it a fallacy, but like you might not. So
yeah, I mean, I think like for a while, Survivor was strictly like you have to have a big resume, you have to have big moves, and then in the new era, it's not really been about that. It hasn't really been about the resume building. It's been really about threat management has been the theme. I feel like in the new era has been threat management, and the people who have won in the new era, what they have done good at is managing their threat. Now Rachel's kind of an exception to that because she did have a threat level that was pretty high in the game, but I feel like the rest of the new era winners, it has been about threat management, like diminishing their threat level. And I think that's how most people play the game now is they just try to diminish their threat level. And it's not really about making the big moves for your resume. But I feel like there were players this season who appreciated that. Like Andy obviously was one of those people who wanted to make a big move for his resume, but I don't think there's not as much focus on the resume building anymore as there used to be.
And for me, I think the problem, the reason that is because if you look at Will Wall, for example, the people that try to build these very long resumes are usually the people that get cut before the end.
Yeah, that's how it is in the new year. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, even in the 30s,
Yeah,
like I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I feel like Tony, and that was even in the 20s, but I feel like Tony's the only one that got to the end that made all of the big moves in the season. I feel like outside of Tony, everyone else that was making all these crazy moves, eventually it all caught up to them and they went home. And I think that people sat at home during COVID specifically and said, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that because we want to win the game. Maybe we should, like you said, go in, paint other people as threats, lower our threat level so much that by the time people have figured it out, I'm sitting at the end. I'm Mike Gabler. I'm Erica. I'm all these other people that people like the audience wouldn't see as winners, but because they've done a good job at navigating the game enough that a Jesse goes home or an Omer goes home in 42 or something like that, all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a situation where you're sitting next to two people that either people don't like or people like, but you somehow did more than them socially, strategically, or physically that everyone just kind of votes for you. And I think that's such a, I enjoyed that tweak to the game. Because it's fun to watch people, and it was especially fun to watch it this season because Rachel was the threat that somehow lowered the threat level, but was still looked as a threat.
I know she has such a crazy story.
It is insane.
Yeah, which I think that's why I like her as a winner so much because she's such a unique winner.
Yes, and so where do you put her on your personal? Does she top 10 for you? Where is she at for you?
Maybe not top 10. I'd probably say top 15. Yeah.
For New Era, is she top or would it be D?
I would put D above her.
Okay. I just guess you would say D.
Yeah, I'd put D at the top. She was the most dominant winner of the New Era.
For me, I mean, it's between her and D. I feel like a lot of people would be between her and D.
Yep.
I would have to rewatch the season in 2 years to like really decide how I feel. But I think I'm biased too because I picked Rachel to win at the beginning of the season and she won. So like I called it. And I know that you said that this is now a top 10 season for you. 48 and 49 are coming out, and we've talked about a lot on this show about people playing for 50, and we both kind of think that Gabe was playing for 50 this season. People that played 48 wouldn't have seen this one, but do you think that it's going to be a lot of the same next season? And do you think that, especially having seen 47 and 48, do you think that by the time we get to 49, it's just going to be 18 people just like, I want to play next season, so I'm just going to be the biggest character ever so that I can come back in a month?
I would love that. That'd be so entertaining to watch. That'd be so fun. I mean, I feel like some people on 49 too, like, I mean, everybody wants to win, but I feel like some people will be like, I don't have to win. Like, I can just come back on 50 as long as I'm a good character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So on this season, if you had to pick 3 people to come back, hold on, before I ask that, if you had to pick 3 people that you feel like production would bring back, who would they be? And who would the 3 people that you would personally bring back?
Okay, I'm going to start with me personally. That's an easy pick for me. Genevieve, Andy, and Saul.
Okay.
And I feel like those are the 3 fan favorites too. So if production's basing it off of fan favorites, then yes. But I mean, they could bring back someone like Kyle, which would be terrible. But I don't know.
I mean, his archetype's going to be taken by Jonathan, as we both know. So
True. But no, I could see them bringing back Genevieve, though. I could see them probably bringing back Sam, maybe. I feel like the ones that are contenders are Genevieve, Andy, Sam. I mean, Saul just for fan favorite purposes, but I don't know. I don't think they'd probably bring him back.
I don't either. I think that a lot of the Saw love comes from his outfits on the jury, which
Yeah.
good for you, man. For me, I I think they're gonna bring back Andy, Gabe, and probably Genevieve. It's also crazy to me that I just figured out that Sam is 24, as I thought that guy was like around my age. I'm in my 30s. I thought he was a little bit older. Hearing that he's only 24, wow. But I would say that yeah, Genevieve, Gabe, and Andy.
You think Gabe?
I think Gabe, and the reason, and we talked about this in his boot episode. The reason I think Gabe's going to come back is because during his boot episode, I think there are 3 moments, maybe 4. So when the final vote is read, he says, "I'll be back."
Mm-hmm.
And then as he gets up, I think he says it again. When he gets his torch snuff, he says it again. And in his final words, he says it again. It's like, okay, they could have edited around this man saying it this many times. Why are they showing us this?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's probably like just some weird conspiracy theory. I'm just putting my tinfoil hat. Like, why are they showing it this many times? So
I like Gabe. I like Gabe a lot more after the season. Like I was like, reading like the Ponderosa interviews and exit interviews, obviously. And people really liked Gabe. They hyped up his game. They said like he was playing one of the best games. We just didn't really see it in the edit that much. So I think he was a very strong player. And I loved his attitude at the end in the after show, the reunion or whatever they call it now, where Jeff was asking him, like, do you just not have emotions in the game? And he's like, nope, I don't care. He's like, it doesn't affect me. So I was like, I like that attitude.
Yeah, I liked Gabe, Rome, and Andy were fun. Gabe, Rome,
they won't bring Rome back after he leaked the boot.
Oh, I know. But if throwing Genevieve in there, they were very fun villains, like Survivor villains. Mm-hmm. Where like, yeah, they're not some monster like Russell Hanson or anything. They're just actual. They play their roles well as like the antagonist. I wouldn't call them villains. They were great antagonists to whoever they were going against this season. That's why for me personally, I want Genevieve, Rachel, and a third. If I have to throw a third in there, I'd probably say, fuck it. We can bring back Andy. It's fine.
Yeah,
but I want Genevieve and Rachel to come back together.
Yeah.
To have like a Colby Jerry type rival, like across seasons rivalry, because it was so good. They carried the second half of the season by just that. You mentioned it earlier. That moment with them sitting at the tent after the final 6. It's like, yes. And the fact that they were the 2 people competing during the final 5 immunity, like it was between them, I believe. That's what I wanted. If we could get them on the same season again, and even if they do a Tony Sarah and work together for a bit, that'd be awesome too.
So great. But do you think that they'll bring back winners for 50?
So not even necessarily 50. This could be like any type of future season. I don't think they're going to bring back winners for 50. I think if we're talking about just, let's say they just bring back one person from this season for 50, I think it's going to be Andy.
Yeah, Andy or Genevieve.
Andy or Genevieve, yes. Yes. Yeah. I think that anybody else that they bring back will not be for 50.
Mm-hmm.
Because 50's going to, because 50's been put on this pedestal. That's like the word of the day. Because 50's been put on this pedestal, I feel like they're only going to bring back Jesse, Omer, from the new era, and from the pre-40, Christian, Davey, maybe even Chrissy, those characters. We won't get a Kelly Wentworth until the next returning season, because Kelly Wentworth was just a pre-merger from Cinderella. She wasn't who she was now then. We won't get her back until later.
Mm-hmm.
And we all 3 of us, and somebody in the chat brought it up too. Jonathan has the Kyle spot wrapped. Jonathan has that spot wrapped up, and Jonathan hopefully just goes home early, so we don't have to deal with it.
I think they'll target him early for sure. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know if obviously if 50 is going to be primarily new era players, if they're going to bring people back from, older seasons. I have no idea. But
they have said they're going to bring back people from older seasons.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I don't know like how many, like if it'll be balanced between new era, old school. Like we don't know. Yeah. I'm excited. We need to do player rankings too. We need to do player rankings too.
Oh, player rankings, yeah. From what, 5 to 1 or 5 to 1? Okay, you can go 5 to 1.
Okay. Let me write out mine.
I think I have mine, and it's basically the 5 people I've been hyping up all season.
Yeah. This is hard. It's so hard.
Okay. While we do this, Gabe set the bar higher than he hit. That's his only downside. Had Gabe not talked up a big game or dropped the immunity necklace during the dance, he would be back. I don't think 50 brings back winners, and I don't think winners deserve to come back. Okay, unless it's an all-winner season. Why are we making the rich richer? Give other people chances to change their lives. It bugs me. Where's the equity? All right, like I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
I with winners coming back every now and then. That's because it's very rare that winner. In fact, unless you're Sandra or Tony in an all-winner season, winners don't win returnee seasons because they get dealt with early-ish. Where does the season rank in the new era? For me personally, it's top of the new era. I go 47 and 42 and 45.
I'm 47, 45.
Okay.
40. Okay, I'm a hot take. I'm 47, 45, 43, 42.
43. Jesse was fun.
I liked the game.
I loved Ellie, and even though she didn't make
yeah. I didn't obviously care for the winner, but I like the cast. I like the gameplay. So it's like aged very well. So 47, 45, 43, 42, 44, and 46 are kind of tied for me. And then I just have to put 41 at the bottom. I love Erica, but that seems
a lot of people have started to put 41 at the bottom. And I think, like 41's fine. 41's fine. It's fine. Like it's fine. Who are 6? So we'll answer this when we do our power rankings.
Okay, let's reveal.
You can go ahead.
Okay. So at 5, I have Andy. I think Andy did have great strategic mind in the game. He was able to socially integrate with people. Obviously, his flaw was the perception of everyone thinking he was the GOAT. I mean, obviously he made a mistake in telling Rachel his game and that being the reason why she ultimately voted him out over Sam. But, he just could not, bless his heart, he could not get the GOAT perception off of him. Like everybody in the game just saw him as someone to take to the end, which, that was partially his strategy there. But even like he was a fun character, but I put him at 5.
Okay. My 5th would be Caroline. I think that Caroline played a great under the radar game. I think I loved her relationship with Sue. And she just kind of ran into a situation where Rachel won. So they went after the next biggest threat, which happened to be her. But I do think there is a path to the end where Caroline wins if she sits next to like Teeny and Sue. Yeah. Or even if she sat next to Sam and Sue, I think Caroline potentially still wins.
And Andy.
And Andy. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Number 4?
Number 4 is Caroline for me. Yeah, same reasons. What I really loved about her game is how much she did lean into putting other people or hyping up other people's threat levels over her own. And she just was at such a good positioning in the game. Like when she went out, it was like crazy because she was in the best position at that point in the game, I believe. She obviously had Sue. She had Rachel. Rachel said that it wasn't shown how close her and Caroline actually were in the game. So she literally was at the center of everyone in that game. Like her positioning was definitely the best. Her threat management was definitely the best of anyone else. So yeah, she did amazing. She just didn't obviously have that many moves of her own. She didn't obviously have the immunity wins, advantage, things like that. But I think she had the best positioning and the best threat management of anyone.
Yeah. Number 4 for me is Gabe. I think as much as I wasn't really vibing with Gabe during the season, I had to respect the fact that like his crew was sticking together. They stuck together until a point where they couldn't anymore, and even then, the 3 never turned on each other. Right? Him, Caroline, and Sue never turned on each other. I think that
Caroline voted Gabe out, right?
Oh no, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yes, Sue didn't flip on him. Sue didn't flip on him. I think put in another situation similar to that, I think that if Gabe was on any of the starting tribes this season, he would have been able to keep his crew in check to the point that he made it in this episode or in this season. I wasn't the biggest Gabe guy, but like there's nothing wrong with his. It's just I didn't vibe with him, but yeah. I would say that he was a very good player. And hearing what you mentioned earlier about people's exit interviews saying that that just added more to like, okay, yeah. So I'm not crazy thinking this guy was actually doing well. Just circumstances. I'm assuming that our top 3 can't be the same because
I know we gotta change it up.
But number 3,
number 3 would be Sam for me. Yeah. One thing I do want to touch on, we obviously said that Sam had a great final tribal speech, great, fight there at the end. I loved hearing him, the passion he had for the game. But he kept, he said this even like on his Twitter after the season, in his exit interview. He kept hyping on the fact that he was on the right side of the vote every time. And I'm like, Sam, but you wouldn't have been at Merge with a CR vote out. He just didn't have a vote. But he would have been on the wrong side of the vote that round. So I'm like, you can't lean into that argument. Like that argument is so flawed. And I was just annoyed that he kept leaning into that argument.
Oh, he's only 24. He doesn't know.
Yeah. But and then he twice he had his vote blocked. Like he didn't have a vote once blocked, and the other one he didn't have a vote. Yeah. So I'm like, Sam, no, like you weren't all that great. You would have been on the wrong side of the vote, Yes. Yeah. But no, I respect his game. I respect that he didn't have to rely on immunity wins. Obviously, he did make moves of his own. So overall, it's respectful, but he just had a bigger threat there beside him. So
yeah. Number 3 for me is Andy. Andy, me and Jake sat here after episode 1 and listened to all the discourse. Everyone, even in the chat, everyone hated Andy. And me and Jake sat here and said, you know what? We're not really like, Jake loves Andy now, but like Andy was fine. And I felt like I supported him even more because he had so many haters. Like I was not rooting for Andy to win, but I found myself consistently supporting him because it's like, wow, this guy is actually playing a good game. Why does everyone hate him so much? And why is everyone on the actual show calling him a GOAT? It boggled my mind because we are seeing everything. Yes, he had silly moments like losing he lost the idol, like he re-hit the idol and couldn't find it or something like that. I think episode 2 or 3. Yes, he had very flawed moments, but like that was also we also have all these great moments like Operation Italy, the Italian Job, that he sat there and explained, and that went to perfection. Mm-hmm. Yes, he came on a little strong when everyone's like, maybe we shouldn't split the vote, and he's like, no, we need to split it. We need to split it. I think that Andy played a great game, and I haven't watched exit interviews yet, but I hope that the people that were consistently calling him a GOAT that were actually out there with him saw the merits of his game afterwards. Mm-hmm. I feel like Rachel did see the merits in his game in the moment, because when he's basically telling her, hey, we're going to vote you out, so here's my entire game, I think that's when Rachel realized, okay, yeah, well, it's between you and Sam, but like it's going to be you. So yeah, I feel like Andy played great. I'm going to just put this out there now. My honorable mention would be Sam because of his final tribal performance, but Sam's not in my top 5. Mm-hmm. But our top 2 is going to be the same, so it's fine.
Yeah. Yep. So, the 1 and 2, they can interchange, honestly, but I'm gonna put Rachel at 2, and I'm gonna put Genevieve at 1. That can change. I mean, obviously Rachel won and Genevieve didn't, but I do think that Genevieve had to rely more on social strategic. Her back was against the wall a lot of times, and she didn't really have as much to rely on as Rachel did, because Rachel had an idol, an advantage, immunity wins, things like that. So yeah, I do like Genevieve though. She was my favorite player the whole season. So it's kind of biased, but yeah, I put Rachel at 2, Genevieve at 1.
I'm the same way, and I'm trying very hard not to be biased and say, okay, well, I picked Rachel to win, so she's got to be a number 1. So I'm going to say that Rachel's number 2, but they are interchangeable. I think that Genevieve, it would almost be weekly. We would get on here and be like, somehow Genevieve is still here.
Yeah.
And she shouldn't still be here. She should be long gone. And I think that one of my favorite moments of the entire season. So they're it's easy for me to say. I've never played the game before, but there are only a few people in Survivor history that I feel like actually understand what the game is. And that would be like Richard Hatch, Chris Doherty, Bob Cesarino, people that like get it. Like, our goal is to make it to the end and win. We are voting out people, but we shouldn't feel bad about it. And I feel like Genevieve encapsulated that until she had that moment where it's like, wow, like I'm really isolating people. And I thought that was such a real raw moment. And then she went back to play, like to game Genevieve afterwards. But I think she needed that moment of like, well, I'm not actually making these bonds with people. So like, I know there's a lot of internet people saying, that tribal where she's like, oh yeah, this is my village now or whatever it is. Everyone was fake. I'm like, no, I don't think that was fake. I think that was her saying, hey, sorry guys for being, like this. I'm still going to play hard, but like, I'm going to make sure that I don't come off as cold-hearted the rest of the time. And I think that's what ultimately got her to tell Teenie that the idol was fake. Mm-hmm. I think she just reverted quickly back to real life Genevieve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that I don't think that would have really mattered ultimately, but like, so I loved Genevieve's game from episode 3 on when she actually became shown on the show. I thought that her and Caroline were basically the same person until I think Jake had to tell me like, oh no, she's a different woman. I think that Rachel played an amazing. If it had been her, Genevieve, and Sue at the end, I wouldn't have been upset with either of these two winning. And it's very rare that we get that strong of a two where the rivals are probably the two best people or two best players on the season.
Has there ever been a season where we've had two rivals sitting at the end?
Sitting at the end? No.
I'd have to look into that. Not off the top of my head, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to Ghost Island. No, they were best buds.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sandra and Russell, yeah.
Even then, they came from the same OG tribe, and like, okay, whatever. Yeah, fine. I'll give them that.
Yeah,
Sandra and Russell. I'll say Sandra and Russell.
Yeah.
What if Sandra? What if Genevieve, Caroline?
Oh, what a great final 3. That might even potentially end in like a tie somehow.
Well, there were 9 jurors, 8 jurors?
There were. Was there 8 or 9?
Okay, I think
there was 8.
I think it was 8. So, it could have tied 3-3-2.
Mm-hmm.
And then whoever, Caroline probably would have to cast that last vote.
Yeah, because I definitely think Sue would have 100% voted Caroline no matter what. And then,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't see games like that anymore. She was loyal to a fault. I have a friend who he was like, why would Rachel tell Sue about the idol? It's like, because she knows that Sue's not going to tell anyone.
Yeah.
Like, if it was almost anyone else, yeah, you don't. Sue's not going to tell. She's ride or die, and like legitimate ride or die, not these people like, oh, I'm ride or die until. No.
In a world where the jury, if it would have been a very bitter jury and they would have been upset at Sam and Rachel, there is a world Sue could have won if it was a bitter jury, but this jury was not bitter. So,
so the last question, we have to do our DVD cover. For me, it'd be bottom row, Andy, Sam,
Gabe,
and then up here we'll put Caroline, Rachel, Genevieve.
Yeah, I'd say that too. Yep.
So so we're gonna start to wrap up. So for everyone that listens, whether it's now or when you listen after we upload this, during the off season, my next project is not going to be a marathon. Don't worry. But my next project, I'm going to be hosting panels. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to do it yet, but basically we're going to talk about the robbed player fallacy. Where every week I'm going to talk about a player that the internet has deemed robbed. I'm obviously going to be on the side of they weren't robbed, they lost because they lost. And I'll have a panel of people to talk about, why that's true, why that's not true. And we're going to do that for about 4 to 6 weeks leading into Survivor 48. I'm so glad that we didn't have to hear 40 several jokes all season. I was very scared that was going to happen. It didn't. Final thoughts on the season, and we will head out.
Yeah, I feel like we've discussed it all. It's one of our top seasons. And one thing I want to say too about Genevieve real quick is I do think that if she comes back for 50, they will take her narrative of like not showing emotions in this season. And I feel like she'll be kind of like a Spencer coming back and like, having.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. Like I would love to see her story unfold in 50 and her have more emotions with people. Like, yeah. So I am super excited.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in all season. It's been a lot of fun. This has been my first season that I've covered from beginning to end since 43, maybe 44. But especially after the marathon this summer, I was really excited to get back into covering seasons. Sarah, thank you so much for hopping in such short notice. The fact that we went an hour is insane. Like, that's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I obviously will be reaching out to you to help with the panel during the off season. I hope that you can help us out with that. Hopefully Jake will be back soon. Maybe me and Jake will hop on so that do like a 15-minute thing where he can give his take on the end of the season. Once again, everyone, thank you in the chat, and we'll see you next time.